Hello everybody. I hope that you're well. Gosh, what a busy week so far, and it's only Thursday. Thank you to everybody who has watched the first episode, which is really an introduction to my podcast. It's just so nice to see everybody kind of jumping on, asking questions, just popping up in my DMs again. I've missed everybody so much, but it's also really nice to come back to community with something that I am so passionate about. And for everybody who's in my personal life, basically this is all I talk about at the moment. I'm great fun. But the reason I talk about it a lot is because I actually fundamentally believe it so much. Human design is something that has been knocking at my door for a couple of years, and it has really, I ignored it for a little while, and I was like, no, it's fine. I don't need another thing to learn about, right? But actually understanding it has got me closer to who I am and understanding what makes me up. So for example, I was having a chat with mum yesterday, and it was just really nice to be able to sit there and she was, asking me how I was. And my mum's really lovely. She's, sort of a really good cook. So when she was over here in the UK, when my husband was traveling a couple of weeks ago, she kind of flew over to basically look after Alice and I. It was hilarious. And she just really, the moment she stepped in, into my home, though we had some really good fun and it was never expected of her, she just started taking care of us. It was like a really natural thing for her to do. And as I was talking to her, I actually said to her, you do know you have the nurturing channel in your human design charts. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, you're naturally nurturing. So you have a part of your chart that really does focus on kind of giving the people you love, your friends and your family, the resources to help support them, right? So whether that's things like making their home comfortable, whether it's cooking them really nice food so that they, have filled up their tummies, they've got the energy to go and do other things. She's fueling people by using this nurturing element within her programming, her design, right? So it was really quite interesting to talk to mum about that. And actually it's quite funny because as I'm exploring more and as I'm creating more charts for more people and as I'm doing more readings for people and things like that, I now have so many charts, like hundreds of them. And so if something pops up that I'm like, oh gosh, I'm sure that has popped up in blah blah's chart, and then I'll go and have a look. There are so many things that kind of come up in people's charts. I was talking to another lady the other day, and she said to me, that when she kind of goes into a room to talk to people, she's always, her intention is always to kind of share things that are being really helpful, like feedback and things like that. But she said to me, whenever she says things, people can get a little bit offended. So I had a look at her chart, and I then said, well, you have the gate of shock in your chart. And you can imagine the reaction, right? Somebody being told you've got the gate of shock, right? But actually it's a really powerful gate within the chart. And basically it is designed to be able to take information and give it to people in a way that they need to hear it. Now, the word shock can be quite aggressive. So it's like, you're not necessarily going to go and kind of be aggressive to somebody. But because she also has an open emotional center, basically what that means is that she is also empathetic. So she is able to use the power of her emotions to kind of read a room, right? Understand how people are feeling. So that when she's coming in to then deliver this message that somebody's asked her to kind of deliver, or she's offering it as part of maybe a conversation or something, she can read the room and read the people in the room in a way that enables her to land that message well. Right. And it was really funny because actually, when we were having this conversation, and I have this conversation a lot with people who have this emotional energy, like you either have like a defined emotional center, which is where you're sure of your emotions. Maybe you're going to have an emotional wave. You're going to kind of have ups and downs, the way that you feel. And that's a gift, right? And then you've also got people who have got an open emotional center, which is when it's white on their chart. And basically they are the people that can kind of borrow that emotional energy and feel feelings by depending on who they are near. And so, for example, my husband, Clive, he is a hilarious driver. He gets so cross when he's driving. He's really impatient. He doesn't have the patience gate in his chart. And he gets really cross. And I noticed over the years, bear in mind, this is a 23-year journey with Clive and I. So he's driving and I noticed that when he gets cross, I get cross. But then I'm the one who ends up getting the cross the most. And as I started to look into my design, I was like, hang on a minute. I have a husband with a defined emotional center who's very strong in the way that he feels. He's very secure in that kind of energy. And then there's me with my openness, right? And actually I'm completely open, which means I'm very sensitive and empathetic, which is very true. And so what happens is that as he's getting cross, I'm feeling it. But rather than deciding to myself, well, actually, I don't want to feel that. That's his stuff. That's not mine. You know, now I can kind of go like, no, that's his stuff. It really isn't me. I'm kind of like neutral right here. I'm what is it? Switzerland. And so what happened was I would then start getting cross. So then because you amplify it, right? If you're in an energy of somebody like that and you have got an open emotional center, you then take on those feelings and you amplify it, right? It feels worse to you. But it is a beautiful gift. The ability to be able to come in and sense something, to be able to kind of feel different feelings and experience those different feelings on the complete spectrum from like pure joy and happiness to deep sadness, right? The ability to do that and be able to kind of experience life through those many different those lens of feelings, right, is a gift. And it's really interesting because some people I've spoken to have kind of gone, no, it's really awful. I hate that I've got this. And I'm like, no, it's such a gift. It's such a gift to be able to go into a room and be able to read a room, right? It's such a gift to be able to kind of sense how that other person might be feeling. So you can offer them support in whatever way that you offer support through, right? It's a gift to have something like the nurturing channel. You know, it doesn't mean that you're going to be like a slave to the kitchen and you're forever going to be cooking. It's a passion. You are using the resources and the passions that you have inside of you to take care of people, right? The people that you love, to help lift them up. And so within the human design chart, there are 64 gates. There are multiple channels. There are lots and lots of different, it's 5 different energy types, and there are different profile lines. And all of these things tell you like the outline of who you are. And I was actually challenging the word human, like the human part of human design I like, but I was actually challenging the design part of human the other day, because I was sitting here going, well, yes, this is the way that we're designed, but I can see where that might cause friction with people, make them feel uncomfortable. This thought that maybe choice has been taken away from you. But actually all it does is give you the outline, right? You're all of your charts. You experience all of your charts, but we all experience it, in different ways. And understanding that actually is a relief. It's peaceful. It's, when you're kind of like the person that's always jumping from one thing to another and people are telling you just focus on one thing. Well, what if I turned around and I looked at your chart and I was able to say to you, well, actually, because of your energy type, you are meant to do that. I have a husband who's exactly like that, right? He is meant to pick up and leave piles of things all over the place. It's hilarious because that is where his energy is shifting and he's moving around all the time. He needs to be able to be busy all the time, right? And then at the end of the night, when he goes to bed, he puts his head down on the pillow and he falls asleep deeply. Wakes up in the morning and he goes again. I mean, it's exhausting watching him, but actually knowing that about him and understanding the energy that he then needs to give out into the world enables me to support him better. And vice versa, right? That actually, I'm a projector. So projectors don't necessarily work in the same way. We have bursts of work energy, right? And sometimes I'm pulling that energy off of my husband because he's very, very busy and my workforce center, if you like, is open. So I'm also, taking that energy in from him and amplifying it. So to help give me some sustenance, but it also means I'm at risk of burnout, right? And there are parts in your chart, for example, I'm a line 6, I'm a 4-6 profile, right? So the 6 part of the profile, I'll talk about the profiles in a separate video, but the 6 part of the profile means that actually I'm going through almost like 3-part stages of my life. So I've got my youth years, so my 0 to 30, like 35 sort of years, my 35 to kind of like my 50 years, and then my 50 plus years, right? But it's interesting because I'm 45 years old and I'm in this middle part, which is very much around kind of healing the experiences I had in my youth, which is very true. But it's also this feeling that kind of like I want to do all these things and I really want to get going, but sometimes I feel like I don't have the energy. And it's simply because at the moment, that's exactly where I'm meant to be. And knowing that, suddenly it was like a huge relief, a burden off my shoulders. I was like, oh, all right, this makes complete sense to me then. I'm in this phase where I'm like healing and figuring things out. So then I'm gearing up to go again as I approach my 50th birthday, right? I am hoping it'll be a little bit sooner because I'm a bit impatient. I don't know if I want to be healing for another 5 years, but we're going to have to flow with it and go with it. And hilariously, a big part of my chart is surrender, is to be able to just let things go. But as somebody who has a defined will center, and I've got a very, very strong will, that becomes a bit of a challenge. But you start to put all these elements together in a chart. I think when you look at a body graph, so that's what it's called, it can be quite overwhelming because all of a sudden you're seeing coloured shapes, you're seeing lots of numbers, you're seeing some numbers that are coloured in, you're seeing lines connecting the different shapes. And so what I want to do is break that down and have a look at it. So really the shapes are kind of going to tell you, you know, how you use your energy. The little numbers are actually your gifts. It's where your gifts are all hidden, and it also creates part of your purpose. The lines, the channels, are kind of like how you connect with those energy types and how you kind of show up in the world. And, you know, what you're learning and you're expressing through those different kind of coloured lines. And actually, it'll also show you things like that you naturally gravitate to. But it will also show you areas where maybe you kind of look at it and go, that doesn't feel like me. Right. And so there are a lot of human design experts at the moment who are focusing on what they call the deconditioning process. So trying to get people back to their true selves, because as we have journeyed through life, we have had lots of imprints on us. So opinions of others, well-meaning opinions, maybe opinions that haven't been well-meaning because they've been projection onto us. You know, experiences, we've all had such unique life experiences, whether that's in business, whether that's in our personal lives, our relationships. You know, some people are actually designed to have experiences through their own personal relationships. Some people are designed to actually have experiences that maybe include the outer world. So, you know, there's a sort of different understanding. The way that sometimes we might feel that kind of like we're being pulled in different directions might depend on where you are in your journey, what type of profile you have, which actually shows like your personality type. I mean, it is fascinating and it's a constant learning. So you'll see this with all human design teachers, that they're constantly updating their material, because actually it's something that you learn, you experience, you experiment with, you kind of like work through it to figure it out, right? Because I cannot tell you, for example, looking at your chart, well, you must do this, this and this, right? But what I can do is say, well, this is the outline. These are things that are showing up in your chart. And if they start to make sense to you, you can start to weave that together. So it's like a tapestry, right? And you create this beautiful, beautiful tapestry at the end of it that shows you your soul story, your life story and your soul story. And the idea is to try and figure out how you balance your soul story and your life story. Well, you know, we're human, we're complex, we're unique. You know, it's absolutely fascinating. And this will appeal to some people and not others. And that's absolutely fine. You kind of take what you want and leave the rest. Especially, you know, it would be very much like where you are in life at the moment as well. What you're experiencing, you know, maybe you have an immediate need about something that you want to explore, and that's fine too. And so over the coming weeks, you know, the website's going to change, everything's going to start to change. And I am basically going to be launching sort of the platform so you can go and run your charts and hopefully get some really nice detail. I'm starting with the podcast because I like talking. It's part of kind of my energy type, is how, you know, I like to express. But also I'll be doing a lot of writing. So I'm probably going to go and make sure that I do kind of, not a newsletter, but like some kind of blog or something, so I can share that. And then obviously at the end of this as well, there'll be the ability to kind of also purchase any readings or anything that you might need. So, you know, and we can also look at charts, not just for you. Like yesterday I was looking at charts for my grandparents, bless them, who are no longer here. And I loved dearly. And because when you're looking at human design, it also considers things like epigenetics. Parts of my chart are actually inherited from my grandparents rather than my parents. And it's the same for you. Your children will inherit parts of their charts will be inherited from their grandparents and so forth, right? And this is why like healing generational trauma and things like that are so important, because what we want to do is kind of stop that kind of like inheritance of it showing up later on in our kind of generational lines. So there's a lot of work. There's some woo-woo stuff. So I'm going to say don't poo-poo the woo-woo again, because this is one of my phrases. But there is some woo-woo stuff. And it's really, really interesting that when you take a step back and you kind of have a look at how we're shifting as a kind of planet, and how we are evolving as human beings, and how much change has gone on even in our lifetime, and like where we're heading. When you have a picture of that, and then you kind of look at the charts and the context of that, and the context of our being in the within that, it is fascinating. It is fascinating. So I will save that all for another episode. But I really wanted to jump on today and just do like 15 minutes and just chat through, just to like kind of talk a bit more about the chart, because I think it's important. And I think also to understand, you know, what it can help you with. And the best readings I have, right, is when people sort of rock up and they'll say, you know, I'm looking at my business like this. And I'll say, well, let me look at the chart. Or I'm having this difficulty in my relationships. Well, let me look at the chart. Blah, blah, blah. And we're able to kind of unpick it together and have a look. You know, it isn't a tarot or an oracle reading. I think that's really important to say. It works with it. It can work with that. It works with law of attraction. It works with all these things. And you'll hear me talk about that more and more. So if you enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe so that you can then be alerted if there's new ones. Do let me know. Please say hello down in the comments. And obviously, if you want to share or anything, please feel free to. But thank you so much for the gift of your time. And I'll speak to you all very soon. Take care. Bye.